Barbara McQuade, let me show you what Congressman Adam Schiff had to say about the charges that the jury found Rhodes and others guilty of.
It shows the department's not afraid to bring some of the most serious charges. And now they've got to look at, okay, who was involved in organizing, inciting, inspiring, giving aid and comfort to those involved in seditious conspiracy. So I think it's, it has consequences going up the ladder of responsibility. But I also think that the former president has got to be very concerned about other statutes that apply to these offenses, like obstructing the lawful functions of the Congress, which these defendants were also convicted of.
Barbara, let me show you one more member of the Select Committee raising those questions about Donald Trump and specifically about whether Meadows' testimony made that clear.
Mr. Meadows' testimony will bear on another key question before this committee. Did Donald Trump, through action or inaction, corruptly seek to obstruct or impede Congress's official proceedings to count electoral votes?
Liz Cheney asked that question much earlier in this calendar year. Are we any further to understanding the answer to her question?
I think we are, only in that this verdict really strengthens the hand of the Justice Department to explore cooperation with some of the other people who are charged with seditious conspiracy and now face trial. Additional members of the Oath Keepers, Proud Boys, and even these defendants who were convicted yesterday. All of them now face a much higher likelihood of going to prison for a very long time. And I think that makes the calculus change for them. If I am the defense attorney for any of these defendants, I am going to them today and saying, look, we now know how juries view these cases. You ought to really consider whether you want to plead guilty and cooperate. What do you have that we can give to the Justice Department that might be of value to them? And so I think that some of those doors that were slammed shut before might be budging open, and it may give an opportunity for the Justice Department to explore cooperation. And the reason that's important is that somebody has got to provide that information that links the people who were involved in the physical attack with Trump and his allies, the people at the Willard Hotel War Room. Was there a connection? Maybe there's not. But if there is a connection, then somebody in this group likely knows about that. And so I think this gives the Justice Department the upper hand for pursuing that cooperation that could connect those two groups of people. The people who physically attacked the Capitol and Trump and his allies.
You know, Pete, we learned through the January 6th Select Committee's public hearings that toward the end of their series of summer hearings, they had amassed a whole lot of witness testimony about Trump's knowledge of violence and the specificity with which he knew who they threatened and who they didn't threaten. He said, they're not going to hurt me. The specificity with which he was briefed on the weapons they had and the radio traffic that Secret Service had. Let me play some of that for you. This is Cassidy Hutchinson on Trump's supporters and the fact that they were armed but not dangerous to him.
He was told again in that conversation, or was he told again in that conversation, that people couldn't come through the mags because they had weapons?
Correct.
And that people, his response was to say they can march to the Capitol from the ellipse.
Something to the effect of, take the effing mags away, they're not here to hurt me, let them in, let my people in, they can march to the Capitol after the rally's over, they can march from the ellipse, take the effing mags away, then they can march to the Capitol.
So he knows who they endanger and who they do not endanger. He wants them at his rally. He doesn't want them going to the Capitol yet. And we know that he wants to go to the Capitol with them. How far does that get you in terms of the investigative sort of pathway into his association with violence?
Well, Nicole, I think it certainly tells you that he was aware of what the crowd was capable of and that he was aware of what the crowd was targeting, and specifically that it wasn't him, and that there was some indication both that they might be violent and that violence might be directed at Congress. But look, I think a couple of things that came out of this, the guilty verdicts and the not guilty verdicts earlier, were that it does show, on the one hand, a jury of their peers found that both Kelly Meggs and Stewart Rhodes had the intent to forcibly oppose was the federal government. And that's an extraordinary vindication for the Department of Justice in bringing these charges. But it also shows that it's very, very difficult in some cases. You mentioned not finding some of the conspiracy charges, finding the defendants guilty of those. And that lays out in the criminal context, when it gets to a jury, that some of these cases are very, very difficult to prove all the elements that you need to bring these charges. So don't get me wrong. This is absolutely a vindication for the Department of Justice. I don't think of it as a win so much as the appropriate justice being done, but it does show some of the challenges that even though we know all these things about former President Trump, even though witnesses are stating that he made these comments to others, and we have people like Stephen Miller who are in the grand jury, people who are immediately at his side, it is a very difficult thing to go from what you know to being able to prove that in a court of law and satisfy all the elements of a crime. Now, as Congressman Schiff indicated in the clip you showed, there are a variety of potential crimes that I think former President Trump might be exposed to, but it's going to be very interesting in the days ahead as these very senior members of the administration continue to get pulled into the front of the grand jury.
That is the sort of inverted piece of this, right? I mean, these insurrectionists who were carrying out violent criminal acts in front of all of our live cameras. I mean, we were broadcasting the insurrection live that day, and it was surreal. These were, I don't know if low-hanging fruit is the right word, but the priority cases that DOJ brought Katie Benner. And the special counsel was appointed with Merrick Garland's specific charge of investigating crimes that may have been committed by people who were not on the grounds of the Capitol. What does that look like? How much visibility do we have into what that looks like?
So we've seen that the Justice Department on that question, over the summer, just before the election period began, they sent out many, many subpoenas for documents and information from a wide variety of people who were close to Mr. Trump's orbit or part of Trump's orbit. And now we see them starting to interview people like Stephen Miller, a key White House figure who was close to the president, remains close to the president. So I think one of the things this shows is that when Merrick Garland said the pace of the investigation will not change because I've appointed a special counsel, that this is likely true. You see that even though Jack Smith has taken over and is in the process of being briefed up and is in the process of, sort of overseeing this broad investigation, that the career prosecutors who've been working on this problem continue to do so at pace. It does not matter that there's been a changing of the guards. They have not stopped their work.